Hello, I was able to finally return to your project, and I've finalized the existing conditions, existing building model, and brought the future project, or brought your proposed plan quite a bit further along. And so there's going to be a lot that is covered in this film, and I'll present a list at the end of the things that I remember and that I mention in the film. So first of all, this was where we were before I took the actual field dimensions out there, and we were having a discrepancy with where your toilet on your plan was lining up with where I was having this window on my plan, according to just building that from brick coursing and photographs. And those definitely proved to be unreliable, because once I returned with the actual field dimensions, I adjusted this model based on that. And I started with the south side. North is up. I don't have that in any of these photographs, but north is going to be up, and this is going to be the south. And I started with the south wall just to find out about that window, and I was wrong on that. So the window shifts back some, and this whole bit shifts back about 27 inches. So that adjusted the plan this way and continued to adjust it all the way around its perimeter based on those field dimensions I took, arriving at a pretty reliable model of the outside. And that's how it lines up with the county sketch. And so now it's renamed 6/12, June 12th, existing plan. And then I did some more adjustment on this interior based on photographs, and it starts maybe looking a little bit more like what you have there. The next time I am over in Dayton, hopefully I can arrange to come in and take some other interior dimensions so that we know everything is accurate. And in these next several slides, you'll see the difference between what we had put together, what I had put together, and what the actual, or something a lot closer to what the actual is in each of these cases, where this is the actual. And here you can see the 2 foot 3 inches that comes off of the east end. And this one you can see, that was where we had the bathroom window, and it actually ships over here. And this continues to change up along this roof line, at least with some of these dormers anyway. But this is pretty accurate down here, I would say within an inch on the exterior. And that arrived us at this 6/12 existing plan. And we start to put in your plan, your drawn plan. And you can see that the toilet is still off some, so there will have to be some adjustment there. But you had already sent me an alternative plan in terms of your new bath, to which we'll return later in the film. But returning to building your plan out of this existing plan, this was where we were at 525A the last time, and then starting to adjust it to account for reality. 616A becomes the plan, and we just start building out your plan from this. Not your bathroom yet, but just the main parts up there, replacing 525A with an accurate 616A. By the way, somewhere you sent me a text that the north wall of the kitchen is all windows. So now north is going to be up in the plans. So this would be north. Do you mean this one maybe? Because we know this is going to be all glass, but clarify that text, please. Thanks. And we start putting in the rest of this structure, and we end up with something like this. I pull some of these out to make more sense with the coursing. I'm pretty sure you probably meant that was going to be 12 foot over here, the depth of this office and den. So that was pulled out 8 inches. And then put in the rest of the windows that are shown, at least the ones that I could pick up on the copy of your drawing, down through this office and den. And at this point, all this was put together. And the outside is obviously a wreck and had a lot of work to go. Now, I'll preface this next section by saying that what I ended up putting together was, to me, was the simplest approach. And it might be completely different from whatever you had envisioned for this, because there were no elevation kind of drawings provided with the plan. So this is what I put together based on this. And that said, I would do a lot more with this yet. So even at the very end of this film, to me this is the most basic kind of approach without doing anything additional. It was just put together as the first approach to get this thing undercover and effective and functional. So we're going to correct that wreck, but first we're going to return to the floor plan section, and we're going to begin with that bathroom. This wall is wrong, by the way. In the end, it should, right now it should be aligned with the framing of this portion of this existing wall. So that much is wrong. This is actually 14.3 or so. But I returned to put in the texted diagram of this proposed floor plan, and I didn't take that floor planning any further than that. So that wall is moved back, and after that, putting your plan in, you end up with 1410 here, and everything has space here. And then we continue to build from your diagram, the existing, going to this, and adding these stairs in here. I initially had you transitioning down 3 stairs to this portion here, because I have this down. I have the front porch and the covered porch down 6 1/4 inches from the subfloor, which means that's going to be about 7-inch riser there. And then I have this deck here, another 7 inches down from the covered patio, trying to get you down closer to the ground. If you had something else in mind, that all of this can be on one level. I don't believe that much was indicated on your plan. So yes, that's what I had, is 1, 2, 3 to get down here, but this is really only down 14 inches from the first floor. And there were other things I wanted to talk about. Oh, with regard to this master bedroom, since you're taking apart everything, and since this brick ends at the top of that or at the bottom of the freeze board, if you want to modify this window in any way, that air conditioner is going to have to come over some. But if you want to add a larger and more gracious window to that, that would be a pretty easy thing to do. And the same thing goes with if you wanted to add a glass block or some other natural lighting here. And I say that with regard to that brick because you're painting it, so there won't be the normal headache of keying it in. Presumably you can just cut it smooth and it will be presentable enough for, a person would have to make a judgment if that's good enough. But also with regard to that brick, I think I talked about this in the last film, whether this is an existing wall here, these are both existing walls here, and whether those are taken down and reconstructed as all frame coming around here, or somehow modified where a portion of this is thin brick coming around here. But that will have to be firmed up eventually. For the moment, I'm showing it as just conventional masonry like yours, and then painted. It would just be concrete brick coming around this far here. Additionally, I show the same kind of brick with the 4-inch veneer, typical 4-inch veneer brick, coming up so far on these walls here on the covered patio and the deck. And then all of this down here, at the moment, I'm showing this all in siding. And as I said, I'll try to remember everything. But this is when I began to put your stairs in that you have shown, stairs here and here. And remember, the topography is built according to what the county, what the maps are showing is out there. And I was able, just from leaving it alone, with not doing too much work with it at all, we were able to get these are down. This is 5 risers to the grade here, and 3 to the grade here. And I am now, this is down 1 riser. All of this is down 1, that's not indicated, but all of this covered patio is down 7 inches or so from the living space here. And you can see I've gotten rid of the 2 stairs, and you'll see how that plays outside a lot better as far as that goes. But yeah, if this deck is down 2 risers, then we need to get down to it. And I believe I could see there was a note about a grill, and that's how I would kind of do it if I was thinking of that. And you can bring that platform out to whatever extent you think is sensible. I mean, if you think you're going to put a little small cafe table, 2 or 3 foot round table there, you might want to bring that all the way out to here. Now this firebox, I'm showing it wider because of how the roof builds and how that interacts with the dormer above it. I'm showing this wider than it needs to be for what your diagram shows. This diagram here, this where we are here at 620A, this is shown built off of some 42-inch wide, and maybe it was even wider than that. I did not make a note of that. But in any event, you have plenty of width as far as that goes, and as much depth as you want as well. So one of the first things you should specify, if you can, is that fireplace and how is that firebox and what that's going to be. I'm assuming that's not going to be a wood burning with a big chimney in front of it up top. So those were those 2 or 3 items with regard to how we're going down here. You ended up, this is pretty nice the way, and this just worked out the way the grade was already built according to what I observed in the maps, and it worked out kind of natural, and you'll see that when we go through the progression on the exterior development. And you will see that when we go through the progression looking at the development of the outside from this angle. The next thing I wanted to mention, right now, at least as near as I can tell, it's going to make the most sense to frame the walls of these 2 new rooms at standard 97 1/8 high and finish out about 8 foot finish inside. And you're currently finishing out at about 8'4". So there would be a difference there. And as long as we're down through here, I know another question I had was with regard to these pocket doors says glass. So, and I would like to have a much better idea of what your interior finish is in terms of these doors and your trim and moldings. You'll be able to see some of them through the windows from the outside, but what those are going to be in this new, because everything, it looks like everything is new through here. So that also ought to be specified. Currently, just so that we'd have a starting point, I'm showing the simplest of kind of shaker style trim with the 5/4 header and 1x4 casings, 1x6 base and shoe mold. You may differ on that, and I'm showing the doors as simple 2-panel shaker style doors. Obviously there's a myriad of doors available, so if you already have something in mind, let me know. Additionally, I'm showing the interior finish as all white. If you have something else in mind, anything you send me over that you have in mind can be very easily incorporated into what we're doing and what we're working with. And there are a lot of different ways, obviously, you know that from your background, to treat these interiors. So the quicker we can firm that up both with regard to this sort of thing and the interior plain doors like your bedroom doors, also those barn doors and the pocket doors as well. So early on, these windows and doors ought to be specified in terms of this sort of thing here, and just preliminary research. I'm just going to choose this for now for my preliminary specifications. The Lifestyle series, which apparently is an aluminum clad wood, and I would urge you to go over and review these at the Pella store. I'm assuming that this is their least expensive series here. That's vinyl, so that should be done earlier rather than later, really as early as possible. Now for these doors, for example, if we stay with this Lifestyle series, you'd have to decide on these triple or dual pane glazing, and these are the standard that come with these Lifestyle, and these are the upgrade. And I don't know if you're going to have a sun exposure. I don't see any real severe sun exposure, so it's probably not going to be necessary, but they can advise you better on that than I. You have to decide that. and this sort of thing, and you probably already know all of this, but I want to make sure that we move along on that. I'm assuming no grills. It looks like for some of these side lights, and you show some side lights in your drawing, you'll have to go to triple pane glazing. And whether or not you can mix that glass up effectively, you know, where the doors are dual pane glazing, and you go to a triple pane glazing for some of these side lights, because you see there, and then yeah, to get to these sorts of side light dimensions, which these are all available in dual pane, everything you see over here. It's just these two here, the 1.6 and the 2'2", that you have to go to a triple pane glazing for those units. That's in all the heights. Returning to this, I mentioned, I think, that it looks to me like that air conditioner's got to move a foot or so over, and this is where that bedroom window kind of comes into play, that you might want to think about that. But on the second floor, this is just some sort of progression of development up there. This is what I kind of just roughed out based on various things. It's obviously wrong. And this got it a little closer, and it just kind of progresses along. So there is no attic available above this space here. As you know, it's tight getting in here already, and it doesn't improve. So now I shifted it up so that you could see the bottom underneath this and what we have going down there. And these are my best guesses as to what's happening up here, and I relabeled these going forward a little bit. But those are my best guesses. Looking at this room, but down here, end to end, I guess when these walls are to 0, that's 26 feet or so. And when they're put in line with this, it's obviously whatever this is. I don't know what this exact measurement is. So that would be really helpful just to know that before I travel out there and find out myself. But doing something like that, you end up with this 10'10" by 12'5" room up there. And you can, as far as I'm concerned, you can spread those out as far as you want, and I can design the framing for that. I do notice that you showed this was going to be in trusses. I believe that's the case, and maybe you were thinking those would be those attic trusses. And to my knowledge, and I'm sure they can design anything, but to my knowledge, generally, you can only get about 1/3 of the length. So you would end up with about closer to 9 foot than 13.8, closer to 10 foot probably. But I don't know that for a fact. In any case, I wasn't ready to design the framing, and then it was, put some windows. And one thing I liked is that the window that's up there now. You can see the valley to the southwest, but you can't see anything to the northwest or really too much to the straight west. And then I guess the final thing was, as I went through the outside, it looked to me, if we do this with the roofs of design, and I understand you might have something entirely different in mind, and just let me know, and I'm sure that it will work. But this is what I was showing, and when I show it from the outside, it felt like, for one thing, to make this room more like a yoga room or a workout room or office, just a little bit more space, and picking up this view, this north view here. Additionally, not mentioned that can happen back here, anything can happen back here, or straight out something like this can happen out here, depending on how big a deal you want this room here to be. But that's what I showed it at the moment, toward the end of this portion of this. And then I'm looking at this section 54 through there, that cut. This is what you have, that big long 26 or 28 foot run here. And when you keep the ceiling at 7'6", you have that 8 foot across the ceiling, 7'6", and that's your current ceiling is around 7'6", 89 and something. So put in the knee walls. If you put in the knee walls at 5 foot high, then you end up with 13'8" wide, and with this bit up here. And then obviously a window, and as you said, if I have any ideas, feel free to let you know. But Now you had talked about, I think you meant intended trusses, but if this were conventionally framed with some arrangement like this, with these floor joists running out west and then some sort of beam across here holding those, these floor joists could actually be cantilevered and you could actually have a balcony out there, or that could actually cantilever, come on out and be cantilevered and actually be additional covered space. And I didn't obviously don't want to go down that whole road, but you know, in that event, this width here becomes more as you come out there, if that were what a person was inclined to do. But continuing with our regular program, it was sizing this window at the time, and I have it at 6'8", standard height. And these are all Pella sizes. I've been adjusting these windows as I go along to Pella sizes, not everywhere, but pretty much everywhere. To Pella sizes, and this was how I put this one together, and this is 3 of the equal sizes. So those are 3 25-inch units, and there's the dimensions in inches to make it easier. And this is just your typical flanking casements on either side with a fixed center unit. Then I widened that out even further, where those middle ones, where the flanking ones become 29 and the middle ones 34 or 35. But I don't like that, and I believe I ended up making them all the same size here. And it looked to me like to be the same size. Perhaps not. So the middle one I must have left an additional 5 inches wide or 6 inches wider than these 2 flanking ones. You may want a whole different thing up here, including doors and a balcony, etc. And I don't know, I haven't thought if that would help you with stairs to that level, but I'm sure if a person was ambitious enough, it definitely could be done that way. And this is the final section through that thing, and I've even changed the exterior color some here with that dormer built in. And where you place these flanking walls is really up to you. You can push them as far back as as far back as is sensible in any event. And this, I'll return to this in a bit, but now we will go through some of this exterior development after that interior was done to that extent on the first and second floor. Of course, a lot of that happened along the way of the exterior development. The dormer, for example, at least definitely happened during that exterior development. But that's what will be reviewed in this last final part of this film. Actually, I'll just cover this right now in case A, someone's interested, and B, because I had to, I want you to know how the colors that I'm going to represent for the moment, because I just chose something based on your idea of green and applied that to various material on the house. But I came over here for contrasting materials because I don't really know that much about color. And for any of these paint colors, Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, whichever, you can get this base RGB and put it in here and develop various color schemes from this. And this is kind of curious. This is like a lavender. But I know that none of those are the green that you had in mind, because you haven't sent that over yet. But the thing about this website is once you enter a rough color, and I start coming down through here, and so maybe you have already been to the paint store and picked up some paint samples, but this is just a little tool, Paladin.com, that you can use if you're inclined. But if you already know your colors, send them over so that we can try to represent them. As it is, what you're going to see is something closer to what I first showed, and not this that I've rotated around to, because you know, with an infinite number of colors, there are an infinite number of schemes. And I didn't want to waste too much time with this, but I did want to expose you to it, because that's how what you're going to see was chosen, and that was based on just a known color, certain teats, spruce, board and batten vinyl. And I recognize you're not going to be using vinyl, but that's what that starting point was based on, was this here. Presumably, some of these colors really don't look familiar to me. So yes, I presume this is way off, but this was based on Certainty spruce, and the darker color is this one here. And those, to me, don't look very green at all. Now here, this starts looking a little bit more green. Oh, this is all just based on that starting point, which is a fairly light color green, this one here. So yes, what you're going to see on the house is based on this starting kind of green. To me, it's not even that green. And you can start wherever you like, but the starting point for the photos you're going to see next, the exterior development, is based on this and this. And if you want to come in here and horse around with this, now that I've done it, I would be more inclined to use some combination of these here, maybe this and this. But I don't know that much about color, and this is going to be your place. So that's that, and without further ado, now I will show you this exterior development. And again, keep in mind, to me this is far from complete or even approaching that. And my intention for this film had been to stop after I got this squared away, after I got this the new edition under roof. At that point there. And we'll talk about a couple things here. Everything shown is Pella material, Pella sizes so far. And everything has been kept as simple as possible as well. And these columns are just, I'm not sure you can reuse yours. I'm not sure. I think the height changes too much over here, where this is a nice high room here. Because of that step down, this becomes another 7 inches higher than your interior room. And this is where you can see I got rid of these two steps for a number of reasons, functionality, and I didn't like the alignment here. These windows up here, some of them will definitely want to double check. These are shown as these 34-inch wide twin casements by, I think, 41 inches high. And the next size up from that, in terms of a twin casement, is going to be substantially wider. It's going to be 42 inches wide. So probably that's what you'll end up with in those dormers once that's double checked. And as you can see, this is all conventional masonry shown around here. And I don't like to do this sort of thing. I mean, this can be done with a thin brick type of thing, but I would still want to see this bottom built out to create that depth. Otherwise I wouldn't want to do that at all. And here you can see this fireplace doesn't have to be that wide according to your drawing. At first I built it wider because I was considering putting a gutter on this bit here and tying it into this gutter here. But it needed to be wider because it didn't look right. It was too narrow with regard to this dormer above it because it's centered on that dormer. So I widened it out to something at least substantial enough to do that. And this was just correcting some things up along this roof line. That your current thing is built thick like that, where it's 1.5 inch piece, it looks like, out there. And the new one will be more conventional like that. And remember, this is all still built with this traditional materials. All this crown mold is still up here, etc. That would presumably be replaced, as I mentioned in an earlier film. This crown mold would probably be replaced with square stock of some type. And I'm showing a downspout here. Now I got rid of this gutter here because I didn't want the clunkiness of downspouting coming to here. But there is, roof fetch, and whether they can put a little diverter thing here to keep most of that water going into the gutters will have to be discussed. And then this is where we add this window up here to this gable end. And again, this might not be the roof line you had in mind at all. I noticed your note on the plan talked about possibly raising this kitchen area at least, and I haven't explored that yet. Even if we do raise that ceiling, we're not going to get any better access to that attic space above this kitchen. It can still be used for mechanical equipment. So this is when I first began to add some color to this. Before I made some additional adjustments here and there, I began to add some color. And again, I had worked with this cedar boards, which is just a vinyl siding, and I know yours is not going to be vinyl. What I'm showing is 12 inches spacing on these battens, and those probably work out to about 1.5 inch battens in this representation. But again, this green is based on cedar board's spruce, because to me here it looks green. It didn't look green in the Peloton representation, but it's the identical color, that code that you saw. And then that was the contrasting color, just to see. I really just want you to have a feel for the effect of this, and unspoken in all of this is the roof color, which is going to play a major role. So if you have a feel for what that roof is going to be, that should be sent over as well. And notice these corner boards, I changed them to something that's a mismatch. It's supposed to match this siding, but I kind of like them darker like this in this early representations here. But this is just to show you the effect of the color as we go through here on the structure and the mass. And this is painting that brick, and you are not going to see that much definition, but we left that alone for a while. I left that alone for a while. I think I ended up adjusting that a little bit more. But here are the stairs, and you can see this was the land just as it laid. Really, I made a little adjustment here at the bottoms, but this was the land as it existed. I'm showing those steps in concrete. I'm showing this deck platform with poured concrete wall, because that's a curve down there. But there's a number of ways that this can be approached. That's just the way I approached it at this very beginning. There's another thing that happened back here was this brick sill. I didn't think that, once I saw it, I didn't think that should be mixed with these cultured stone sills, or whatever those sills, those concrete sills currently are, whether it's stone or concrete. But those are available in cultured stone, and so I changed all that capping and all the sills at the door. Missed that one there, but the sills at the doors and the caps, and of course the windows remain consistent with what's existing over here. So yeah, paint the brick, and here's where I changed these corner boards. Those changed at the same time, I suppose, to the lighter color. That would be matching this, more or less. That would be done in the same material as this. And here's where you can also see all the sills have been changed, and this has been reduced to this single step here. And whether there's a grill out here can be explored. This could be a little bit more narrow, but actually not much. But yeah, this could be more narrow, and we could just leave the roof line wide, and it'll probably look all right as well. And I say that because if this is more narrow, your platform becomes wider. And it looked to me like, when it was all said and done, it could probably be arranged where a person just steps down one riser, and this is a platform here to or some sort of level area to access the yard right from these two at this corner. Unless something more elaborate is put in, I would think that was some sort of a landscaping feature to transition in this area here to the yard. And then we come over here, and then these are just, once I arrived at that, it was enough for this film, because there was still a lot to discuss, both in terms of the style and what's represented, and some other ideas I have in mind. This rear roof pitch, if we keep this room at 8'0" finished, this can be 212, which can be covered with the ice and water shield, and the shingle warranty will still carry on that pitch. But it can't, if this room goes higher, we're not going to have room to keep that at 212 because of the dormers on that back side. And then finally, once all of that was situated, I added this dormer up here to balance that out, that whole thing. And I don't know that it's absolutely necessary, but for now I want to show it. Finally, I tried to adjust this brick just a little bit more to match that siding better. And that's what I ended up with. Went back to dark corners on these sided parts. And these are just some of these changes over here, I guess, including the updated brick. So now it is essentially a two-color scheme. And here you can see that corner board should match the siding if this is the situation. Now, I could show you siding with spaced at 16 inches as well. but I just wanted to do so much for this film to get us so far along. And then with the updated brick next, and the corners done in dark in this view. And finally, you can add this dormer at the back just like you do it at the front, particularly if that's done in some sort of a truss design. That makes more sense if that's a truss design instead of stick framed, to just add a dormer on both sides. If that was something, I don't know how big a deal this room is supposed to be, but if that's done, I think these walls need adjusted a little bit anyway, and I don't know what this dimension is, but it must be something close to this. If that's done, maybe that dividing wall is just taken out, and this becomes a much bigger room that's a multi-use room and has some real closets, and these are 56-inch wide doors, double doors on each side, so quite a bit of closet space for bedroom 4. And it's a nice symmetrical layout as well. This is 26 long and there's 4 feet on each side of this. So that was that situation with that rear dormer added. And this is from the back side down in the yard. That's that existing dormer, and this is the new piece here. And this room, this ceiling is shown in a finished wood tongue and grooves. That'll have to be kind of decided as well. A lot of it is these colors. If those are kind of at least brought a little closer to what you might have had in mind, we can further explore some of the other elements, some of the decorative elements. Like I said, I think all this crown is going to go away, some of this, and I'm not sure about these round columns either. And this little short thing, I like to see the change from before, and that's as close as we can get to the actual what's existing now at this point, in the after from each of these views. And this is a pretty dramatic change. Color and everything aside, this is a pretty dramatic change. Certainly, I think the house becomes more mellow like this. And these here, by the way, these could be just single casements as well. I don't show that, but they could definitely be that way. Back here, I think I actually had to increase the field of view to make this showable. The roof's not that shiny, but yeah. And very last in this film is a couple rotations around with the camera for you to get a feel for the entire structure. I know you have some future plans possibly over to the east end, just to see how it is laying on the land, etc. And you can speed up the film if you like, but I made 2 rotations, one where it's just following the land allegedly and is just above the land, and the other one just apparently or hopefully just stays level with the film. But I won't be commenting during that, and it's just for you to see and get a feel for those elements, those sorts of things, the massing and all of that. And all of these 2 rotations were made before that brick was changed. It's part of why these videos take so long to get over, because I keep returning to the plan. But these were made before that brick color change. And this is the one that is supposed to be staying level, and it looks like it at first, but when it gets out to the front it doesn't actually look like it's staying at 60 inches above the inside floor level, which is what I intended for this rotation. Yeah, I'm not sure there's any difference at all in these two rotations. Well, I know there is at first, but this looks very similar to the last. And it is definitely following the terrain and not staying level. So I'm sorry about that. Perhaps the next little clip will help. Finally, the final bit are these. This is what I could remember. I'm sure that I'm missing quite a bit, but these are some of the things that I knew would be good if we could specify these earlier rather than later. Not shown on the list is confirming that the Pella Lifestyle series is the appropriate series. And some of the other stuff with regard to those Pella products I didn't mention, but you would have to specify the hardware on any of the doors that we get. And I did not mention that the interior door hardware will need to be specified as well in terms of the finish and what it is, knobs or levers. I've been showing levers throughout, but you may have something else in mind. So feel free to give me any feedback at all that you like, as well as sending any photos that you like over. And that's all. I guess I don't know if I'm going to be putting together the final drawings on the kitchen, or if you will just wait until you're ready and then your kitchen supplier will take their dimensions and put that together with you, which is kind of what I'm assuming. But let me know on that. Alright, that is it. I've stretched this film out another 3 or 4 days from when I intended to get it to you, so because I kept returning to it. But I'm going to leave it alone for now, and this is where we are at this point, and we'll see where we go from here. I will probably do some on this on my own, just horsing around with it in a couple different ways, even without your feedback yet. But I will look forward to having some feedback from you guys. That's it. Thanks very much, and I will talk to you soon.